Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with Kyle and Mistie Knight. This was a ton of fun learning about behind the scenes in their incredible magic life. You know, they have been on tours, they have been on TV shows, they won Wizard Wars, and we get to hear about how they did all of that. Kyle has an epic background in magic, working, building, and creating illusions, and Mistie has done some incredible things on the managing side of things. And this was just a ton of fun to learn about exactly how they do what they do and what they've been up to during the past few months in quarantine, because they've been crushing it there too. It was a ton of fun. I liked it. I think you will too. Here it is, a wonderful time with the two and only Kyle and Mistie Knight. How are you guys?
Hey,
Hello.
Jonah. We're
Good to be here.
I am so excited to chat with you guys. It's been so much fun. You know, Mistie and I guess all of us, but Mistie and I work together for quite a bit, and you guys have just been doing such amazing stuff in the virtual and online space. And before that, so exciting. So I'm excited to jump in. I always like talking to duos because I don't get to ask, how did you get into magic? But there's a together story. So let's kind of do it one at a time and then together. Let's start with the together. So how did you guys figure out, doing magic together?
Next month will be 18 years since we met.
Wow.
I'm from a little town in Mississippi with 2 stoplights. I'd always been a performer, but never in this kind of regard. And I met him on a cruise out of New Orleans, actually, and I didn't even see a show, but we obviously hit it off and kept in touch over the phone for almost a year.
And I'm still mad about the fact she never saw the show. I actually met her before my show. I was performing on a cruise ship. I don't even remember a company, but I was performing on a ship. I met her before the show. I invited her to come to the show. I wanted to impress her, and she never showed up to the show.
Listen, I didn't know if my husband was going to be on the cruise.
Had you known then what you knew now, of course you would have gone, but then...
It makes the story even better because it wasn't about any hype or anything. It was just because he and I had a connection, and I came to visit him in Vegas, and I canceled my return flight home. It was just everybody thought it was crazy.
Oh my goodness. That is crazy. That is
my
crazy.
hometown newspaper just did this full page article on us like last week. So they're really supportive, but they all thought I was nuts originally.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. So kind of your introduction into magic was Kyle.
Definitely.
Wow.
I had my only experience with magic before was watching David Copperfield and World's Greatest Magic on TV. I remember seeing those, but I had no experience with magic before. I was comfortable on stage. I was more of a speaker and I played the piano, but he definitely introduced me to magic and has been very supportive of me being an equal partner ever since the beginning. So it's been great.
Love it. I love the way that you got into magic, which was through Kyle, not necessarily going to see his show, but after the fact, connecting with magic and moving out to Vegas, which is crazy. And then Kyle, tell me about your magic story. I guess you were already in Vegas, doing magic when Mistie joined ship. So what did that whole thing look like?
Actually, was I still in Vegas at the time? I don't even remember.
You were in Vegas then.
It's a long time ago.
You had just come off of like Magic Island, Magic.
I used to do
Magic
a lot of
Castle.
Magic Castle. Wow, you remember my history better than I do. Yeah, I mean, I got started when I was, just every story that magicians have, where they get started as a kid. Actually, I have more of an interest. I guess I'm hugely dyslexic. So my mother would make me read as a kid, and the only thing I was really interested in was reading magic books. So it was something that interested me, and then it just kept on going from there. So.
And where'd you grow up?
Wisconsin.
And was there a specific like magic shop or community or people that you
there
started
was a
with?
magic shop in Milwaukee, which was the House of Illusion. So that was my first magic shop, and I learned stuff from that. I worked for Brett Daniels. He was a magician.
Yes.
I don't know if he did a lot of the World's Greatest. I was on all those World's Greatest, by the way. Remember on Thanksgiving, we'd all have those World's Greatest.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's the same in Canada as well, but they had World's Greatest Magic specials, and I was on all those doing the back work and, lifting up the hoop for the fire thing and behind the Lamborghini and all that crazy stuff. So
wow. So you actually were behind the scenes a lot.
I was behind the scenes. Yeah. I was
You see him on the videos.
You see me on the videos every now and then. You see a little bit.
Were you doing like, touring with your act or doing stuff with, your magic for how long were you doing that before Mistie, or not really?
Well, before I got started, I guess made it to the next level up. I actually had a kind of a really crappy magic show in Wisconsin, and I
Nice.
I worked for Brett Daniels for like 4 years, And I made a lot of money and I learned a lot. So when I got back, I had done working for him, I went back to Wisconsin and I gave away everything I owned. I said, I'm starting this over fresh. I gave all my props and illusions. I sold everything.
Like now he's like, I'm selling the illusions. I'm like, no, hold on to
because
them.
if I get rid of that stuff, then I won't be trapped into that cycle again. So I just got rid of everything and just moved to Vegas, started over fresh. And that's really what, where I am now. And I think it was a good decision.
And you used to do close-up. People always think of him as maybe just being an illusionist, but he started out doing close-up magic, walk-around magic at a restaurant. You had a steady gig there.
Yeah, I did that for quite a few years before.
Did you just do magic and behind-the-scenes magic? Have you had a real job?
I have never had another job except one summer. I was worked in a dairy farm in Wisconsin across the street from our house, and I baled hay, and it was the most miserable experience of my entire life because it's hard work. Bales of hay are not light, and you get scratches all over. And I said, this is ridiculous. I don't want to do this life. I want to be an entertainer.
Yeah, let's do card tricks. I think is better.
I actually got a degree in television video production, which I almost never use. I used one gig that was working for Brett Daniels, filming his demo tape. And then after I filmed it, I started working for him. So it all kind of made its way a little.
And now I do our video editing.
Yeah, I don't even know how to do it anymore. So
awesome. That is so great. Okay, so something interesting that I always hear about entertainers is this like move to Vegas. It's like we're going to go to the promised land. It's all going to happen there. That's where things are going to happen. And a lot of the times, at least the first few steps of the story don't turn out in reality the way that it looks like in their heads. Vegas isn't Oz, the land of Oz, where magical gigs fall from trees and money flows from the skies. No. Instead, there's actually work that's got to get done and a lot of things that has to happen. So can you walk me through what it kind of looked like getting to Vegas and trying to get some footing and how it is that you guys did that?
Yeah, I very rarely.
You followed a girl.
Yeah, I followed a girl. Well, she lived in Vegas. One of the dancers from his show lived in Vegas, my ex-girlfriend. So it, wasn't totally, Vegas is a great place to live as far as being in the hub of entertainment and magic, but I never really, and I've done Vegas shows and I've had my face on billboards and all that cool stuff, but it wasn't like that was my plan. I always wanted to be, I always thought that the path to the success would be just to be commercial and really get out there and work. And I was doing cruises and making a lot of money. And we've been around the world because of it. So it's not like, Vegas is good to have just so you can say, hey, I've worked Vegas and I've done that. And it's the real money is in touring. There's
almost I feel like there's always been too much stress in pursuing a real Vegas residency. And we've seen, and that's not always the case for everybody, but it's been something that's been presented to us a few times and we've always decided not to. And we're considering it more, obviously, in the post-COVID world, with now this new version of our show, which is really small and it's just the two of us, a lot of personality, not big stuff. That's a lot more feasible. In the past, it just seemed more stress than it was worth.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, that four-walling or even giving a residency is a little bit more of a nightmare in places like that. And it's almost better to have the number one show in Wisconsin or whatever than the number 19 and a half show.
Right. Competing against David Copperfield and Chris and it's why do and Penn and Teller, and at the time it was Lance Burton as well.
But that's not to say that other people haven't been successful doing it.
Of course.
They have. I think it just depends on who you are, what your goals are, and what kind of show you have.
100%. So talk to me about what that journey kind of was together. You've mentioned a few times cruises, and I know that you guys have been doing cruises for a really long time. Was that kind of your big space that you guys, moved into?
Well, our show and performance style has really evolved over the years. And initially it was all about the illusions and music and choreography. And I was really kind of in a traditional assistant role. I didn't speak and I was in the background. And we did that for several years. It's a funny story. I remember when I first came to Vegas, I knew that he was committed to me at the moment that he took a saw to his illusion. I'm really petite. I'm not even 5 feet tall. And so when I was standing in this modern art, if you saw my toes sticking out the bottom, you couldn't see my head because it was just like my eyes. So he ended up sawing the head hole lower so that it could be modified for me. And that's when I was like, okay, he's keeping me.
He's serious about this.
But so we did the illusions for I'd say about 10 years really, and I was
and it was mostly on cruises.
We did a lot of cruises. We were still
all
doing
over.
Vegas shows,
And-
and we would do longer contracts because, it's an expensive thing to ship all the props. The companies take care of it, but it would make more sense to, if you were going to do illusions, to be there for
We
longer.
were about half the time on cruises, half the time other venues and
we would do
corporates.
variety shows in Vegas a lot and corporate things. But yeah, for the first bit, they offered us contracts more than a year in advance. Nobody could touch the money that they were offering, so it was the best fit for us. It was illusions for many years. And then once, I'd say about 2009, things started changing. I started speaking in the show, and it really shifted everything.
Out of necessity, right?
Yeah, we were in Europe, and our audience, we found out surprisingly, was going to be all Spanish speaking. And
Nobody told us, not our agent, nobody. We didn't know.
And so we adapted rather quickly by taking out pieces that were more verbal that Kyle was doing. I added the piano in. We did a duet of me playing the piano and him doing magic that was just all visual. And then I started speaking Spanish in the show to translate. And
do you speak Spanish?
I mean, hablo solo un poquito. I only speak a little.
Okay.
But we have done 2 summers in Europe with Spanish audiences, and we also did a season in South America where I did the show in Spanish. And they offered us another one to come back, so I guess I did okay.
She really does pick up language as well. She also learned Italian in 2 days. So
that was
just enough to do the show. I mean, she couldn't go and,
So I was able to do that, and then Kyle, I guess, saw, that it was a good addition to the show. And so once we got out of the Europe season and got back to the US, we really continued that, where the audience got to see both of us speaking. And the audience was telling us after the show how much they appreciated that. They got to know me personally. So we kept.
And especially because you did it in Spanish, they really, no, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. Yeah, that's awesome.
Changed.
That's awesome.
We downsized. We stopped doing as much illusions. We made it more about personality with the two of us. Made it more.
Was there something there about, there was also kind of like a shift in the late 2000s of like, everyone was going to like, not necessarily mentalism, but that was kind of a big thing. And also just in general, getting away from big box, music, no words. Did that play a role as well?
We
Absolutely.
strategically chose illusions in the show. If they were illusions, they were talking pieces. Our favorite ones, would bring the audience on stage and they would be surrounding us. And it would just, it was definitely a different style. Like you say, it was no more choreography, it
very little, if anything.
It felt different. And I don't know if that was just because we could pick up on that was more of a previous decade style, or it's just us doing everything we could to really show the audience that we were individuals,
I think it's like magic itself growing up, and changing and going through different phases. So there's something to that, that it evolves with time. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that we, a lot of magicians and illusionists, large illusionists have kind of gone through that shift recently. And just especially like, I don't want to lug around the props, and there's something crazy happens when the first time you slow things down, put the camera in your hands, and then people love it. And you're like, well, what on earth are we doing bringing these giant boxes?
I always say the evolution of a magician is they start with card tricks, and then they get as big as they can, and then they go back to card tricks at the end. So it's like that's
That's awesome.
Well, we added some close up into the show with the video screens early on. I remember it was
We were
like
one of the
2006.
first,
You added, I think 2006 is when you started doing a coin matrix. 2005, because I remember it was doing close up really resonated with the audience. We just tried to have a nice variety, speaking pieces, the piano, the close up magic, a few illusions, just to give them a little bit of everything. There's costume quick changes.
It's amazing. Before we shift off of the grand illusions, I know that, Kyle, you did a lot of building, not only illusions for yourself and shortening them for Misty, but also some illusions for other people. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when I didn't have a lot of money, I started building my own thing. So I really got crafty, I guess, as far as learning how to do that kind of on my own, as far as how to build things. After I left Brett Daniels, I moved to Vegas and didn't have a job. So I worked for Bill Smith for a little while, and he's a big Magic Ventures. He's kind of creates the illusions and builds the illusions for all the main guys at the time, and Copperfield and everybody. And I was building those props so learning under him as far as how to really do things right. So I got an education in that way.
And for many years, our opening illusion was one that Kyle designed and built himself.
Oh, the big fan, yes.
Yeah, and
which I want to sell right now.
He's trying to sell it. Maybe I want to.
I want to get rid of everything.
And then you also created our backstage, it's our own version of backstage with the magician. He uses throwing knives, and it was different enough that it, Steinmeier was like, nope, that's your unique thing. And then he created a levitation suspension illusion that ended up on America's Got Talent and on Britain's Got Talent.
Yes,
the one that Darcy Oak performed when he levitated Heidi Klum. That's Kyle's invention, and those are through Tim Clothier's. He's our official builder for that. So yeah, most people don't know, but you've created some original illusions too.
Help me understand what you mean when you say an official builder. Does that mean you come up with the designs and schematics and then someone else builds it?
Right. I don't want to have to build things myself. So
And that's also how you prevent knockoffs. There's already been a few knockoffs of that illusion, like we saw some pop up in Europe, and they see it and they think, oh, I can recreate that. The only way to really keep track of whether it's an authorized build where Kyle gets the rights that he's owed is through the authorized builder.
Interesting. And you don't do any physical building yourself?
I don't do any physical building myself, with minor exceptions.
He's been building the tables now. So when was it? I'd say 2015, we started doing a fly-on show, which means just packing in a suitcase. And we did like a whole summer in Europe on 5 different cruise lines, just ship hopping, 3 days here, 2 days here, just boom, boom, boom.
Most exhausting.
And so we needed tables that could travel really well and hold up to all these airports. And sometimes you'd get on a ship and need a show that night. So you need something that's going to build fast and just be really, versatile. So he made these.
So I built these tables out of PVC and ABS that just packed down furniture grade PVC, and they packed down into a suitcase. And we were using those all the time. And we'd also do magic conventions at the same time, do lectures at conventions. And the magicians at the conventions would see my tables and say, "Oh, I want that table. Where can I get that?"
We didn't intend to sell them to the magic community, but people saw them and like, "Well, I want that," because it builds in like a minute and a half. They saw him build it on stage and they thought that was cool. So now he started producing them. We've sold a lot at magic conventions. We still have a handful now because he's not going to.
It's so funny. You like go to a magic convention, you like set up your table, you do a whole illusion. At the end, they're like, "Where do I get that table that it took you to set up for a minute?"
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I started mass producing them, and I sold quite a few of them.
We have 2 different versions. We have the main table that we use that has space for lots of different things, and then we have a really small side table that's been good for these social distance shows. We did shows in July in Tahoe, which were social distance style, and we just had these little 2-pound super small tables sprinkled throughout the theater. So if a volunteer got involved, they just reached over to the table next to them, picked up the book or whatever. There needed to be no other contact. And they're so small. They use a lot of them. And we're using them in our virtual shows too. So we have these tables, a handful of them left too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea. It's funny, always the best product are when you fulfill your own need. You scratch your own itch, and then you realize that, there's dozens of other people that need that solution as well. So that's really wonderful. Talk to me a little bit about some of the highlights of where you guys were. I know some people are listening to this and they're thinking like, touring around the world, doing like magic shows, like this sounds like incredible. So maybe walk us through kind of both sides of it. So like number one, like what is it really like to, fly around the world to do shows? There's only some magicians, even though many magicians are successful in many different ways, only some of them spend their lives, touring around the world.
We often forget about that and take that for granted, I guess, that we have literally been to 83
countries.
83 countries. We've been around the world. I mean, from the Arctic to Antarctic, all around.
There was one year where we actually, in the same year, we were in the Antarctic Circle and the Arctic Circle. But a lot of that was on cruises. We did 5 different summers, full summers in Europe. We did a season in South America, Caribbean, and then we've also, in addition to cruises, performed in Cairo, Egypt at a big festival. We had 4 months in France.
Why don't you help me understand, like, what is a real positive about the cruise life and a real challenge or negative about the cruise life?
One of my favorite things, obviously I love the travel. I think I love the travel more than anybody. Like I just get giddy at the thought of going to someplace new and would just soak it up. But you're away from home a lot. And we never really got to experience real life until now. This year's the first year where I've actually understood what it's like to have a home and cook. And
you got a dog.
Yeah, we got 2 dogs. Like
two. Yeah.
Our home used to be just a hotel in Vegas, basically. I mean, it's still a home, but we just
a storage locker
where we'd keep our stuff.
So that's tough. And you are disconnected from the world, even though you have Wi-Fi. It's not always consistent. And also you do really have to be commercial. It does limit you with what you can perform, because we were headlining on Disney cruises for the last 5 years or so. And so we were performing a show that was right for their brand.
Right.
But one advantage to working cruises that most people don't even realize is that you have a captive audience there with you after the show. Okay.
And
you have a chance to get real, honest feedback if you listen to your audience, because in any other situation, they leave the theater and you never see them again.
And then you have this illusion in yourself, in your own head that, I was fantastic.
Oh, they clapped. They stood. They loved me.
Or even the opposite, you know, or even, you think the negatives, you don't know exactly what parts were the best.
This is what we did early on. And I think this was one of the big key things.
People would come up to us after the show, and then you know how people are. They're like, they want to say, oh, this was great, but I think I know how you did this one. Rather than shut that down, we would just let them talk. We would encourage them to and this was because it allowed us to make the magic stronger. If we listened to whatever it was they were skeptical of, even if it was bogus, and oftentimes it is, it allows us to get inside their heads and make it stronger. And then we took that so far. There was a few years when we were doing cruises, we had this magic workshop where we would sell product afterward. And we were killing it back then because we would have people waiting in line for like 30 minutes to buy these DVDs. So we said, you know what? These people want to give us feedback. Let's let them. And I think some people might not like this, especially if they consider themselves more artists than entertainers. But I've always thought we were entertainers. We gave them a survey with the things on the show, and we said, circle your favorite thing, put a line through your least favorite thing. And this opened our eyes. It really was great to understand. We would hang on to things often because it was our baby, or it was fun to do, or we felt like it fit in the show as, part of the scheme. But we learned that there were some things that just weren't strong magic. There were other things that were completely forgotten. Our show really got taken to another level whenever we were able to listen to the audience and look at it from their perspective. And that's obviously, you take things with a grain of salt. It's not like we're going to go out and change everything because one person has an opinion. But, there's some good info there if you really want to get feedback. And that's a good advantage to cruises that you don't have in other venues sometimes.
That is a wild, wild thing to do. And I think it's obvious how helpful it is when you see, oftentimes I like to say that the changes that we make should come from trends. So like when one magician says was after our show, like, hey, I didn't like that trick. Like, it doesn't really matter. But if 9 of them say it, maybe there's something going on there. Same thing about audience members, right? If one audience member says, I didn't like you do that, you go to hell. But if all of them say it,
it took us to a different level. I feel like we were kind of stuck in that was kind of the shift where we got out of the big illusions and got into more thinking kind of magic and personality driven pieces. And it came from that.
Because it was because of them.
They really did appreciate certain things more than others. But yeah, the cruises were a big part of our lives, but we also tried to always do other things. We had 4 months at a casino in Macau in China at Franz Ferrari's House of Magic. And that was another great learning experience because our audiences did not speak any English. They were all Chinese, and we had to do a totally nonverbal show, which was not easy. But, we adapted and figured that out.
I want to touch on something that you said, which is really interesting. You said, I consider us more entertainers than artists. And whether we're looking at it in the exact same lens, I think that part of it is about, a question, which is, are we trying to make ourselves happy with the magic that we're doing? Or are we trying to, just make the audience happy? And I don't think that we're living in one of these two boats, but I think some magicians are more able to do the things that their audience wants to see and give them what they want and therefore have some successes. And other magicians sometimes like to hold close to their chest and hold high on a pedestal their art, and then maybe they don't get to show what they do to as many people because nobody wants to see the peculiar thing that it is that they're doing. So I'm wondering is what I just said a good take on what you're talking about, or is there a little more nuance or something else there?
And I don't even know which way is best as a career-wise. I mean, you can be an artist and be like, do the best thing.
And I think you kind of have to decide early on, what your goals are and what makes you happy. And for me, and I came into this obviously well into Kyle's magic journey, and my experience in the past was as an entertainer. So that was very easy for me to this is my role. I want to be an entertainer. I want to connect with the audience. I want to make it all about them. I want to make them happy. And that's where I'm going to get joy from what we do. And Kyle's definitely more of an artist. He enjoys creating just the process of creating an illusion and making it come to life and having it be well thought out. So, you kind of have to find a balance. And
I think that a good way of doing this is to be commercial at first. For young people doing this is be commercial at first. Do the stuff that is tried and true, and then build up money, build up your repertoire, build up all that stuff. And then you can slowly change into becoming something the next level, and I feel like the next level of what I'm trying to create now is going to, I can really do what I want to be doing in that next level,
It's funny too, because I'm analyzing it. Kyle's art is definitely with the magic itself, but for me, I feel like it's with words. I was a writer before I met him. I did a lot of creative writing and poetry and publications. And so I really enjoy writing the scripts for the things that we do in the show. And one of my favorite pieces that we do is called Nothing's Impossible. You've seen it. It's now everybody's doing it. The wooden puzzle. We started doing this back in like 2005. And we basically told our story of how each one of us kind of overcame the naysayers and then came to be together and make this possible. And the words with that, in sync with the music, in sync with his motions with the magic, is how I feel like I'm able to be creative and express that, So it's obviously something that's entertaining, but that's the stuff that I take pride in with the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's a middle ground there. It's obviously not like, hey, we just do whatever it is the audience wants and we don't exist in the process. But also it's not on the whole other side of the spectrum where it's like, hey, we don't even care what they think. We're going to do what we think is art. It is this back and forth, and we all kind of land in different places. And I think, kind of to comment on what you were saying, some people say, okay, I will go and do a version of the show where it's nonverbal. Because great, I'm happy to change my show that way to satisfy the audience. And I'll happily do a version of the show with this change. The part of it's in Spanish. All these different changes to satisfy the need. And others go, oh, an artist like me, you want my show, you want me to change what I do to be.
I mean, there's some people you could never see doing that. And that's okay.
Never.
And I think that's kind of the takeaway from the years I've had in magic and just on stage. It's okay to be different and do what works for you. It's okay to have different styles, and it's okay to have different audiences that you're targeting. There's not any one way.
And as long as they're paying me enough, I'll pretty much do anything.
Okay,
that is one way to put it. That's one way to put it. And yes, obviously, like you said, there are many magicians who do just their one thing and don't stray and are very successful doing that one thing. I think of people like, Derek Delgadio, who, even when he went on a talk show, he would refuse to do magic on the talk show, because that's not the way that he wanted to conduct himself. And, so be it. And he had many successes on his own. But I just love thinking about those two things of how much do I care what they think, or how much am I just, putting the art that I want to put into the world. And I love that. I thought that's a really interesting take to think about some of the ways that you guys have been open to maybe making a little bit of changes to help reach broader people.
I think when I said that joke, I do think that if you make enough money, you don't have to take all the gigs. Then you can choose the gigs that you want to take, because now I can choose the gigs that I feel like I want to do that gig, because I don't have to worry about making the money. And, I've already done it.
You have more flexibility.
You have more control over it.
And before the pandemic hit, Kyle was working on this great show concept that's unlike anything I've seen anybody do. And he was already, I'd say 75% done structuring the show, and it was going to be really cool, but it was going to be something that wouldn't necessarily work with the cruises and the venues we'd been working on previously. So it was a situation where we were pulling back, and I actually work as an interagent and a manager for booking other acts for cruises. I have several magicians that I'm booking on cruises before this hit. And we were focusing on them, getting them out there, looking at other venues for ourselves. And this kind of creative thing that Kyle had been working on was possible because he'd already spent these years achieving the financial goals he had set.
There's so many different ways to look at the business and, and the art of it. And I really, really like what you said there about, it's kind of jokingly, if anyone will pay me enough, I'll do the gig. But the other way to think about that is, I like to joke with, some of the people that I coach, like you can, there's a ton of different ways to make $100,000. You can book $1,100 gigs or $100,000 gigs or $25,000 gigs, or you can have two $50,000 clients and you can really, really serve those people. And obviously I'm being a little bit silly. Not all magicians get to play in all of those parks, and we kind of get to decide where it is that we want to live. And there's benefits and pitfalls to all of them. Like if you're a $100 magician, you don't get $5,000 gigs, but if you are a $5,000 magician, you turn down a large percentage of things that come your way because their budgets don't make sense for you.
And it just depends on where you are in your life, what your goals are. I mean, we've been doing, the traveling stuff for a long time, so we were okay changing pace a bit now.
Before we get into talking about virtual, because I think you guys have done a lot of really cool creative things in the virtual space, I want to talk about another real fun thing that you guys did, which doesn't get enough people talking about, which is Wizard Wars.
Yeah.
We used to talk about Wizard Wars a lot on this podcast because Tyler and I started this podcast with Tyler since he's gone on to do some other wonderful things, but we were both like young magicians watching Wizard Wars when it was on and like watching all these magicians be like, oh yeah, I know him and I don't, and meeting all these new people. So I remember seeing you guys on Wizard Wars, but you told me something today, which I have never even heard of, which you said, you guys won all of Wizard Wars. And I didn't even almost realize, no, you guys won. Not all of it. I don't know. But you guys won. Like you can actually win the show by like winning both rounds. And you guys are the only ones that won on Wizard Wars. Is that true?
We were the only challengers to win the grand prize. They had, I don't know, like 8 or 10 episodes. And the concept was that magicians would come on and they'd be given random objects. And this is true. It would be totally random. Then you would be expected to put together magic routines with these random objects. And you were judged on deception, showmanship, creativity, these different things. Penn and Teller, Jason Latimer, Kristen Gearhart, those were the judges. And they would, in the first round, 2 different challengers would compete and they would narrow it down to 1. And then that challenger would go into the final round against the in-house kind of wizards power team. And those were guys that had a whole team of consultants provided from them. So they were definitely set up to be, successful. And we were the only ones that beat the in-house wizards.
Wow.
Second season. And that gave us a $10,000 prize. So that was cool.
It's wild. And you invented a trick on there that fooled Penn and Teller actually
and the
on the show.
Really cool.
Yeah,
This was all Kyle. And you know what? I want to shout out to Bizarro because Bizarro was our consultant and he helped us with this as well.
We've done a lot of different TV shows over the years, and this was by far the most difficult one we've ever done. Normally you do a TV show and you're just doing your stuff that you do normally.
Mm-hmm.
But this was creating things really rapidly.
You came up with this like in your sleep, right?
Yeah.
I remember you just waking up in the middle of the night and saying, this is it.
It's like just the terror of knowing that you have to film tomorrow and you don't really have an ending to your...
How long did you guys have? Because I know on the show it makes it look like you have like a minute, but obviously, you don't have like 3 weeks or something. There is some sort of deadline. So how long do you have?
I think we had a week. They gave us
just under a week,
which was still pretty
but
crazy.
In
that week, we found out when we were away. We were on tour. We were in Europe coming back. So we literally had like 3 days, I think, of really understanding what these props were.
And you didn't have
and our producer,
the props that they gave you on set were like for you to actually start building it and practicing it. That was right before. And then for the actual rehearsal on the stage, we had only one before filming.
And I did this here to describe what I did. I took one of the judges' rings. I took whose ring? I took Jason Latimer's ring and I put it into a blender and then the ring disappeared. And then literally 1 minute later, the judges turned around.
A waitress comes up with a long stem glass on her tray, and the egg is inside of it.
And they can look at the egg, and the egg is not cracked.
From underneath, they're looking at it.
They can see all directions. There's no hole in the egg at all. And they take the egg and they crack the egg with a pen, and there's the ring inside there. So I created a way of getting a ring inside an egg.
It's funny because Penn's comment at the end of the review of what we had done, he says, we all sat here scratching our heads over that goddamn egg. So it was funny. And after the show, and he said we ended up winning the thing because it came down to deception. He didn't know how he did it. Afterward, we were all taking our mics off when the show was over, and Taylor came up to Kyle and said, hey, can I have a guess? And he guessed wrong. So we had that moment off camera.
Oh, man. And you guys actually used to, kind of air that clip at magic conventions and offer a bounty for people if they could figure it out.
He would actually teach his ring vanish method.
The first half of the trick.
Part of our lecture.
How to get a ring or an object from on stage to literally off stage.
He had created this 10 years ago and used it in the show. And so we
taught that part of it.
Taught that in the lecture, and then just as a fun way to close the lecture, he would open it up and say, okay, so during the time we're in this room before the next lecture starts, come up, whisper to me, what your guess is.
We had some prize or something like that.
And like a little trophy. And
did anybody win it?
Now, there have been people after the fact that came up that either got really close or had the idea, but nobody did during that. Nobody actually won the trophy at that moment during the time that we've given.
And if you go up to me after the fact and
like a week later
have drinks with me at the bar and then ask me 30 questions about it.
But even in that scenario, there's only been like 2 people that's even come close. So it's something that fools people. So it's fun.
And I'll tell you, in the rehearsal that we taped before we did the actual filming, it never worked. It appeared inside backstage, cracked open. So it never worked.
And
except
what you didn't see on TV too. Here's another fun fact. So we had won the first round, which was the whole different set of items. And we had only 10 minutes from that going into the second round for filming. And I had to get out of this costume, and I was doing a quick change in the second one. And so I had one costume on, and the producers would say, okay, let's go, because they had a fabric up in front of us blocking the audience's view. Go, we got to film. And I said, you can't, I'm not dressed yet. And they're like, but you're wearing a dress. I'm like, trust me, I'm not ready yet. I'm trying to get my second costume on. Meanwhile, Kyle looks down to his carton of eggs that were preset, strategically placed in a certain order, that had been filled full of eggs.
And then somebody in the production company thought, oh, this was only half of a dozen of eggs. I better put other eggs in this carton so it looks good for TV.
Oh my goodness.
I'm half
production
naked,
assistant,
like screaming at the production team saying, don't drop the camera, don't drop the fabric yet, while Kyle is picking up eggs
and shaking,
throwing them
trying
off
to figure out
stage.
which egg is my gimmicked egg and throwing these eggs off stage.
What is going on?
Oh my goodness.
It's like a train wreck.
That happened
30 seconds
right before the actual filming.
It's like I said, it was the most stressful taping we've ever done of any TV show.
So we were proud of ourselves for pulling that one off.
You know what? I think it's funny because like you see the show, and as a magician, you go, oh, you know, they probably had like a lot of extra time. They probably had, and in a sense, yeah, okay, you did have a week with the idea, but then you look at behind the scenes and the amount that was actually down to the wire and down to like the last minute, the last second is crazy.
There were a lot of things that we needed that production wasn't able to get to us. I mean, we were really very limited with what we had to work with, and it was a fun experience, though. I really am glad
it's over, though.
And then it's funny, you guys did Wizard Wars. You fooled Penn and Teller before it was cool to fool Penn and Teller. And then you went on Penn and Teller's Fool Us as well.
Yeah, the producers saw us on Wizard Wars and they contacted us and said, hey guys, we want you on the show. We were on season 2 of Fool Us. They wanted an illusion. Because they had so many card tricks and things and the close-up guys, and they said, we want an illusion. And we were hesitant because we're like, illusion's not going to fool them. We know that.
And they give you, before the show, they say that this is not really about fooling them, and they give the spiel. But to be honest with you, Teller did not guess it exactly right.
I mean, he drew a picture. Okay, we chose something that was not a box, and that it hadn't really been done a lot, and it would allow us to be equal partners presenting it together. That's why we chose it. He drew a picture and he pointed to something, and he was kind of in the right area, but it wasn't exactly the right method. But you don't argue.
You don't argue
stuff.
with the
And also, it's like sometimes with grand illusions,
that was just great promo to do the show, and they treat you really well there. All magicians will tell you that it's a great experience. And a fun fact with this too, the producers. So we live in Vegas, so we've gone to the filmings of several other ones. And up until I think last season, we made cameo appearances in the audience every single season because they would find us and zoom in on us because they would know it was us. They'd put us down front. It was so funny.
Oh my goodness! See, that stuff's so funny behind the scenes. Was it great to go back and be like, "Hey, Penn, hey, Teller, welcome back"?
They're just really, really creative, brilliant people. And Teller is also really kind-hearted. Like he sends us holiday Christmas cards every year just from that meeting. Like we sat in his dressing room and talked to him for like over an hour after one of the shows because we had seen him after one of their shows. And it was cool because he was working on some card flourishes in the show. And Kyle actually showed him a move that he liked that he said he ended up putting in, I think
so, yeah. I don't
know. But he's just a really, really nice, kind, and brilliant person. They're probably our favorite magicians out there of everybody. I would say Penn and Teller are our favorite.
And do you guys connect often in Vegas or not? I mean, you go to tapings or anything, but I don't know
we're not friendly or anything. He's so giving with his time to other magicians. So, I wouldn't think that he would consider us friends. Anybody that he meets, if he has any kind of connection with you, he'll send you these Christmas cards. That's just the kind of guy he is. So.
Awesome. That's very nice. I want to talk a little bit now about virtual and just all of the fun things that you guys have been up to for the past few months. And I think just like everybody, there was this crazy wild whirlwind of what on earth do we do, especially for touring, Cruises were such the negative headline for the first 6 months of the pandemic.
Yeah, and that whole thing pissed me off though, because there was a lot of misinformation and people don't know that now too. Like even the ones, there's more evidence that's come out since that's shown that it wasn't always accurate. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, they handled some things really poorly, but they get a lot of bad rap, and it's unfair. I feel like, but because it's not like you can trace, if a restaurant is or airplanes, for example, you're not able to isolate every single person where a case came from it. But anyway, Cruises have done a lot since then. They're trying to start out again next year, and they're having a lot of regulations. Everybody's got to get COVID tested. They're requiring masks. And now they're understanding how to not have people trapped on board. And the issue with that was really with the local governments rather than the cruises. Because I know that there were some people that were on a princess ship in South America. There were 0 COVID cases on board. 0.
Yeah, but the government was just like, we don't want
They wouldn't
them.
let them off. And then they eventually said, okay, you guys can come off. So then they all went to the airport to leave. And then at the airport, they changed their minds and sent them back. And then they brought COVID back with them. So they actually had no cases until they had gone out into the
Wild.
But now the cruise regulations that I'm seeing going forward, at least until this gets under control, is that they're not allowing people off in port unless they're on a secure ship excursion. So they're going to create a bubble. So there's no way there can be any kind of contamination.
Interesting.
We're focusing on other avenues.
I was just going to say, walk me through like kind of what that switch was like for you. So it's like, oh man, no longer cruises. What do we do now?
Well, first thing we said we are not going to do virtual shows. That's a horrible idea. We said nope. And other podcasts and interviews that we had done before this. But now we're just eating our words, and we went full force into the virtual shows.
Well, my first thought with virtual too was kind of probably a lot of clients' confusion when it comes to virtual is they think you're just watching a screen and just performing to a screen like YouTube style. And that didn't seem appealing because we're always about the interaction with the audience. Rather quickly we realized that certain platforms make it very easy to interact with the audience. And if you structure the show right, it is all about them. It's all about the engagement. And that's how they can be successful. And so we enjoy it now. I feel like I get this. I'm sweating and excited and energetic from these virtual shows, just like I would be in our theater shows. And I just did the math. We've made more this year with virtual shows than we would have if we had continued with the cruise and theater bookings. So
isn't that wild?
So and I have you to thank for that in a big way. So thank you, Jonah. I did your course, and you taught us a lot. So that was well
happy to help and just to share a teeny little bit of that is it's very crazy that I spent so many years doing it like the hard way, building hundreds and hundreds of relationships and doing email lists and learning SEO and all this different stuff. And I envied all the people that had 3 managers and did 5 cruises and didn't really have to worry about, managing all that stuff. And then it ended up being, important and valuable to learn how to do all of those things now that kind of for a long time, agencies and managers disappeared and we had to figure it out on our own.
The scariest thing for me whenever the pandemic hit and I realized that all of these bookings for the entire year were gone and that we had relied on agencies mostly for our bookings. And we didn't really have a client list. We had never needed it. And I had never had to actually directly market and sell our show. It had been Vegas stuff, word of mouth kind of thing.
Our only demo that we had was on VHS tape showing.
Now that was before me. Age me that
much.
I
had a VHS tape that sold us to the agent, and then at that point I didn't even need a demo tape.
Yeah.
It's like I was working off of that word of mouth, and for years and years and years.
So all of a sudden I realized that if we were going to continue working, I had to learn how to sell the show, how to market. And there are so many different aspects of that. Phone calls, emails, SEO, as you say. And so, yeah, you gave us some guidance on that for sure. And
you absolutely crushed it. And I love watching, that's funny. There was an episode on this podcast that came out probably 3 months ago, which was me doing a live call with you, teaching you how to do a sales call. And now you're like, you do sales calls like it's nothing.
Car, landing the gigs. Yeah.
It's awesome. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that you've been doing virtually.
Yeah. I know a lot of people take different approaches with the virtual shows. A lot of people do close-up magic. We've kind of been incorporating mentalism into our shows ever since we started doing the suitcase show because it plays really big, and we were able to bring that over to virtual really easily. Surprisingly, I'd say 75% of our virtual show are the same things we perform in our stage shows, just modified in a way so that it's, hands off.
One interesting thing that you guys are doing in your show is during the show, you actually generate and create an object that gets sent out to a person after the show. And I think that right now there are so many people trying to wrap their heads around shipping things and sending things. They say like, oh, how can I do a show where I ship something, but I don't ship it to all of the members? And I think that was such a clever idea because it's a nice, memory, and hopefully what'll be in 5 years, like, a memory from when we saw a virtual magic show during the pandemic, which is even crazier. So can you talk a little bit about that idea? Because I thought that was very creative.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing that we added into the shows. We started doing it this summer with our social distance shows, and they help us. It's it's kind of a mentalism in a way.
It's a mentalism and impossible object kind of thing. So
and then so they help create it, and I offer the sending it to them as part of one of the upgraded packages, like the way you instructed us to do it, with 3 different packages, different tiers. That's in the upgraded option. And it's tricky because now I'm having clients want more than one sent out. And so I'm trying to navigate that. But typically we have the one and it goes to like a CEO or a VIP and it sits on their desk and it tells them why it's an impossible object and it gives them a nice memory of the show.
I do think it's a cool thing. I think it's a cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
I think that we're all trying to bridge the gap between over here and over there. There's so much in virtual trying to bridge that gap. And there's a lot of ways to do it. We can do it with interactive magic that people follow along at home. We can do it by sending people stuff over email before or after. We can send videos. We can send kits. There's so many different ways that we can do it. And I just wanted to highlight this because I thought it was a real creative way to kind of only send one thing out. And, more or less, you can probably mass produce your impossible object, or at least make them all in one go, or make a lot of them, or anything to that end, or maybe it's incredibly complicated, but just wanted to express that to other people. It's a really clever idea to not have to generate dozens of kits or dozens of boxes or send equipment out to everybody, but instead send a memory or a memento.
Yeah, we kind of stumbled onto that, and I think it's done us well.
We would perform it in the theater show and give people the option to have this that was created during the show, and they ate it up. So that's when we realized we could do the same with virtual.
You guys have also been producing some videos on Facebook, some ridiculously viral videos, which have
been a weird year. Kyle made a post on Facebook the other day. He's like, this is such a weird year. I actually have an organizer bin labeled fake spiders. This is what my life has become.
I also have fake spiders around my house for the first time. It's ridiculous. The stuff I have to organize is crazy. Talk to me about that. What's going on? What's going on there?
We've always had this perspective of being open to whatever life brings and being versatile and adaptable. Like that has just been, I feel like, our strong suit, because that's what's given us the most joy and success, just being able to rise to the occasion. And so when this opportunity was presented to us to make videos and have some extra income with that, it's like, whoa, this is so different. Such a different experience than we've ever done, out of our comfort zone, a little scary, but it's an opportunity. And so we're going to take it. And we have, been having fun with it. It's a completely different thing than magic. It's not for the magic audience. It's not performing magic. It's just
using our knowledge of magic is
I see
beneficial.
Some people that are listening to this and they have no idea what we're talking about. Can you explain to somebody what this is?
We have a Facebook page that is monetized. Mm-hmm. That means that we can make money off of videos if they get a lot of views. And it's just fun, silly videos. It's just videos with the hopes of people watching them and sharing them. And if we, it's just another additional income for us. I view it very similar as I do to my agency and management business. It's not our show. It's definitely not our creative artist side of us, but it's another way it's
another venue to make money, basically. So
and to also do some fun stuff, to have fun
in a time whenever we're trying to keep our heads above water because of the pandemic and just take advantage of this time when we're home. It's a perfect opportunity. So I'm really grateful that this opportunity came to us. It's been a learning experience because it's so different. But yeah, it's not magic, and it's not for the magic audience. And I think sometimes people don't always get that.
Well, I was just going to say, it's funny that you're saying that, because there are so many things that have like a magic twinge to it, or that aren't necessarily magic but are magical or have a magic relationship. And I think any time that some of that stuff goes out in the world, there is positive and negative feedback. How have you guys felt, especially now that things are viral and getting large numbers of views? I'm sure you get feedback on both sides of the coin. So how has that felt?
With you, okay, I'm the kind of person that gets my feelings hurt really easy, and like
I don't care.
I just I really struggle with that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I hope that people understand that there's something for everybody, and not everything is for everybody, and that's okay. I can't tell you over the years how many magic shows I've seen that weren't my cup of tea for whatever reason. Their style, the way they treated the other performers, the clothes they were wearing, whatever. But that I understand that just because it's not for me doesn't mean that it's not for somebody else. And honestly, I look at it like this too. I want people to be successful in whatever they're trying, and more power to you. I just feel like we're in a place, especially with such a hard year for so many of us, that it does not make sense to try to tear other people down, period.
It is funny how other magicians are so opposed to other magicians doing these other things, other avenues of income. And it's just like, I don't remember ever signing a contract saying that I can only do magic my entire career now. I don't remember taking any oath to saying I have to be a magician because I was a magician.
But you know what the cool thing is? We still are. Like, we are kicking butt with the virtual shows. And you know what? Also doing silly prank videos and also booking other acts.
And building tables and selling.
It's all just different streams of income and different tactics, different audiences. And not everything is for everyone, and that's okay. But honestly, at the end of the day, being hurtful and negative doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve you or the people that you're hurting. So
it is funny. There's a line in the sand, though, definitely with magicians and certain camps and this camp and this camp.
Some people get it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's really interesting because obviously with the move to virtual, so many magicians have explored the internet in different ways, in loads of different ways. And there's something interesting that happens at different scales and phases of releasing stuff on the internet. You know, if I put on a live stream on my own web page, for the most part, I'm going to get positive comments because most of the people there already like me, and the people that like me and stay to watch the live stream like me even more. So I'm not going to get a lot of people trashing me live and telling me maybe good things or bad things, really. No one's going to be yelling bad things to me live if I've got 100 followers on my page and 20 of them or 12 of them are watching live. It's different when your videos get into hundreds of thousands or millions of views. You no longer have the control over who sees it. It's not people who already know you, who already trust you. It's going out into the ether.
That actually know us is so minute.
It's a scale that we can't even fathom. And also, when you're looking at millions and hundreds of millions of views, you know, less than 1% are going to be negative, and that's going to be visible. But you have to look at the big picture. You know, that's just
100%. It's kind of like what we were talking about with getting feedback from your audiences after the show, which is it only really matters if everybody's saying it. You know, if one person says, I don't like this, you say, no problem. There's unlimited content for you on the internet. If everyone in the world says, you're ruining it, okay, maybe we are. But so far, I don't think everyone's been saying it. You know, I think there's a few quiet voices who think whatever they feel, and that's wonderful for them.
I'm just an eternal optimist. And
Me too.
If I look back over the years, there's been so many opportunities to criticize people for different things, but I don't see and if I talk to somebody personally, if you really feel compelled about it, but just to be negative, especially online, it's just yucky.
It might be jealousy.
I'm not going to even say that, but it just hurts me because here's the
frustration.
thing.
Maybe
I'm speaking about not even just our experiences personally. I'm speaking about other things. There's a magic forum where somebody got on there ripping apart another magician that they had seen that had kind of a similar situation where he was doing like a reality TV type thing with his magic show.
Don't bring names, but yeah.
And it was like definitely targeting a more adult, sexy audience. And some people had some really negative things to say about it. And I remember commenting thinking, it's okay if it's not for you. You have every right to have your opinion, but that doesn't mean if it's not for you that it's not for somebody else. There's another audience for it, and there's room for that. And I just, it just hurts me to see people try to tear people down regardless of the reason.
I don't like the dislike in magic. And it's funny because that is dislike, in itself. That's kind of the funny thing there is like whenever there's a magician who's saying, no, you can't, no, you shouldn't, no, this isn't right, this isn't the way we do things, this isn't the way things work, I am very much against those people, which now makes me, one of those negative magicians. But I'm negative against the negatives. But I feel you, sometimes there's always magicians saying, like, oh, you're exposing magic secrets on the internet. You're going to ruin all of magic. Will we? You're exposing.
Like people that are being negative saying, oh, well, this is fake and blah, 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 blah. Like, wait a second. Aren't you the same guy that pretended to hypnotize a girl before you levitated her? Oh, wait, aren't you the same one that was telling the story about how you never saw snow just to get an emotional pull? Wait a second. A little bit of a blurred line there.
Magicians can lie. We can lie. One of our big videos that had 30 million or something like that, we took a blob of.
Now, this was a fun one.
We took Coca-Cola and we took I don't even remember what we did. We put a taser to it. We injected it with something, and it comes to life, and it kind of moves around.
And then I killed it.
And then she cut it at the end, and
it's like mad scientist kind of thing.
It's like, well, that's just another presentation for magic.
I view it as reality TV, mini reality TV.
Right, like Robert Houdin, he used to make it seem like he was doing this scientific things to create magic. He would have ether in the audience, and it's just a different presentation of how you can present magic. It's not like I have to hypnotize it or sprinkle wiffle dust on this thing. That was just a presentational thing, and it's just funny how people have such a hard wall against that, where it's like, no, it has to be done this way, or Anyway, the biggest help you can do to help art is to share the videos. So like and share.
You're funny. Oh God. So now we lost them.
No. But listen. I think that, like all of this, in magic, there's so many different ways that we can apply ourselves. And like I said, in the virtual space, so many magicians have played with so many different fun ways to do things virtually. Some people are teaching magic live. Some people are doing this. People are doing prank videos. Some people are live streaming. Some people are posting daily videos. There's so many different ways to engage and interact with live. There's with the internet, with your brand, with who you are. There are no rules. There's nobody saying this is right and this is wrong. So I certainly think it's wonderful. Screw the haters. That's what I think. As we are nearing the end, a few other things I wanted to talk about. Misty, you mentioned being a manager and an interagent. I've never heard of the term interagent before in my life. What is an interagent?
So we've had a lot of success with the cruise industry, have worked all the major cruise lines, and a lot of experience with that. And I feel like there's a benefit to having somebody that's been on the ground that knows the ins and outs. And so I work with the same agency, and basically I'm just like a partner. So I sometimes bring in new people and take on their whole journey. I'm there to manage everything, to help negotiate the contracts. Another benefit is because we already know all these people. We know the theaters, we know the situations, we know what each cruise line requires. I'm able to email the production managers directly, know what their schedule's going to be. Just, it's extra attention that you wouldn't get from such a big agency.
Because the agency itself doesn't have time to take care of all these little questions.
And so I do a lot, and I have no interest in making it a huge business because we're so busy with other things. So, I have a handful of people that I've worked with. Caroline Raven, a magician from Sweden. She's one of the acts that I was booking. Nathan Fan from LA. He's been working a lot, or he's in he's in California. He's been working a lot on cruises. And Reggie Rice on the East Coast. Got a handful of magicians, some vocalists as well that I'm booking. And I just love helping them be successful. And, in addition, if they're on my team, then they get Kyle and I both also as consultants for this video that we know really well. Like, we spend hours on the phone going through the show, trying to make it perfect for that venue, even, creative aspects for creating magic that might work. Because like right now we're in a situation where when we do resume cruising, they're going to be needing to do more shows and with audiences on stage. So we've been having consulting calls with some of my acts, structuring their new version of the show. And so, yeah, I do that, and I take a lot of pride in it. I feel like I'm good at it. I enjoy it. So when the cruises come back, that's going to be something we're going to be focusing on more.
Awesome. You guys have really been crushing it in the virtual space. Congratulations on staying in a house for multiple months at a time and getting 2 dogs. Very wonderful. Very exciting to see you guys living in a home. Like, I remember talking to you a little bit about that transition for you and how it's kind of been fun to, to go to, all the magicians that have been local magicians or workers, they long for the life of going out on the road and spending life on the road. And then you guys finally spent, half a year, at home. And now you're liking this life.
It's been an eye-opening experience to show us what's really important, because it's not about money necessarily. It's about quality of life at this point, and just balancing our time the way we want to, and doing the things and being with the people that are important. And I believe that these other opportunities that have come our way, the videos, the virtual shows, my agency stuff, all of those have allowed us to be home more and still continue to work. And fortunately with the virtual shows, we can still be creative with the artist aspect. And I don't know, I don't know what 2021 is going to bring, but we're going to look at it as, if an opportunity comes our way, we're going to see how we can rise to the occasion and just keep rolling.
Love it. Love it. Love it. As we are nearing the end of the episode, Each episode has some wrap-up questions for each and every guest. The first one is the endless chain. In order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be perfect for the show. So who would be a perfect addition to this show?
Have you had Caroline on yet?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
Nathan's
another good one. He can tell you about
Nathan Comarge?
Nathan Fan.
Nathan Fan. No, not yet. That'd be wonderful.
He's one of the acts that I've been working with. So he's experiences with cruises, and he's also done touring with Masters of Illusion.
Great.
I love his impression work.
Yeah, well, he's a really talented impressionist and vocalist too.
The next thing,
and
the next question.
Another person, he just walked into the door actually. Hey, Mike.
Mike Hammer.
Mike, come say hello. There's the puppy.
Is Mike a dog?
He does bark.
Mike Hammer is another one. He is so funny. He's had his show here in Vegas for 10 years. Obviously, it's paused now, but he is a funny guy. He toured with Chris Angel. They performed on Broadway. He's doing videos now too. He's just got a lot of cool stuff going on. And he's at our house right now. He just walked in.
Yes. Hello, Mike. The next of the wrap-up questions is about modern magic. What is one thing in the world of modern magic that you like, and one thing in the world of modern magic that you guys don't like?
I'm excited about women in magic. In the last couple of years, we've seen a real change in the way audiences view women in magic and the way magicians are using, obviously as women performers and in their shows. It's been a good change. I'm seeing they don't assume that a girl is just an assistant sidekick anymore. Mm-hmm. They don't. They listen to who they are, and
it's an outdated way of thinking
really
about
cool
it, I think.
Thing.
And I'm curious to see how magic itself evolves with the fact that everything is exposed online, and you can learn anything you want with just a few clicks of a.
But I don't think audiences care. They just want to be entertained. They want to be engaged, and they will go along for the ride.
Is there something you guys don't like about magic right now?
I don't like the seriousness of that type of thing. If you're talking about I think the days of that type of magic is gone, and the sparkly jackets and the.
But here's the thing, though. I want to go right back. I'm sticking to my guns. You can do whatever you want to do, and there's a place for that, and there's an audience for that. I do believe there are certain audiences now that still eat that up.
Yeah.
So you find your place.
Listen, I think there is room for each and every act. I really like that. The next thing is plugs. Where can people find you, and where can people find your stuff on the internet?
Instagram, Kyle and Mistie. And Facebook, Kyle and Mistie. That's our Facebook business page. And I'm all online, Mistie and Kyle. You can find us everywhere. We've got a YouTube page. I have a YouTube travel page, actually, that just got monetized, too. Just showcasing our travels all over the world. So.
Awesome. And with that, the last and final question, which is the take-home point. People have listened to us chat about magic and virtual magic and cruises and everything for a long time now. When people think back to this episode, if they're to just remember one thing or take back one thing, what's the most important thing that you want people to remember?
Don't be afraid to think outside of your own box.
Try new things. Be okay with it.
I feel like if we had initially, because of fear or whatever, just said no to certain opportunities because, we can't take that venue because we talk in our show. We can't do that because we have to have big illusions. We can't do that because we're magicians. We don't do that. If we had said no over and over and over again, so many opportunities would not have come our way. And I really am happy that we said yes to them.
Just say yes first and then try to make it work second. So.
Oh my God, I don't know if I agree with that.
I love it. No, but honestly, I think I actually do love that advice. I think, say yes to stuff, try it. Worst case scenario, doesn't work and you try something else. Nobody remembers the things that you stopped doing because they didn't work. People only remember the things that you keep doing because they do. So thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you guys. So wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonah.
Well, there you go. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, if you learned something, if this was for you, if you think someone else might appreciate this, please spread the word and tell a friend. It means the world. But if you were listening and you were saying, what was Misty talking about? Working with Jonah and Upgrade Academy. And well, I run a program where I'm helping magicians go virtual, especially with the marketing and sales side of things. So if you need help making more money from your shows or booking more virtual magic shows, Go to discourseinmagic.com/call, and you and I can schedule a short phone call to hear a little bit about if Upgrade Academy is for you and if you are right for Upgrade Academy. Other than that, thanks for being here. It means the world. Spread the word, tell a friend, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.